Today on Knit a Spell, we welcome the creator of the absolutely enchanting Northern Animal Tarot deck, Linda Ritter, to the show.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm magical maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
and the craft. If you are not watching this episode on our YouTube or on Instagram, this is an episode to watch the video because you're going to see some amazing images of these gorgeous, cute, adorable oracle cards and tarot cards. So Tune in. Yes, you could totally listen. We'll describe them as best we can, but there's nothing like seeing them.
So let's start with a talk about your art style and background on that.
Yeah, let's chat about art. I grew up without a TV, so I was very much wanted, like, obviously stimulants. So I would read lots of books, but with pictures, because I wanted to see. And when you're a child, they always add the little details at the bottom. And like, I remember lots of books that would have like the story, but then a border, and the mice and everything would kind of be moving in their own story on top of the story, so you could kind of go over and over. So I fell in love with like layers of story, and then I would draw my own, because no TV. Right. I would draw my own stories, like after I read it too many times, and then kind of draw like little mice doing their own thing. And I don't know, like
little continuation of the story.
Yeah. And then later I just really liked ink, because I would just draw, and everyone has a pen, but maybe not everybody has everything else. So it was more like ink drawings. And then later in life, I learned about silk screening. So I moved very much into silk screening through high school. And then after high school, I became a print artist. So I would do my animal designs on t-shirts and do like fairs and like markets. Awesome. And do like silk screening, which is sort of the same. It has that like line work. I was doing the printing. It was less like, you know, those traveling shirts, but more like blocky and strong feeling. And then I was a hairdresser. I am a hairdresser, am sort of still. And so that's creative, lots of like textile. You can see how the hair moves. I like how that when you change someone's hair, you essentially could change their character. And I thought that was super fun, like being able to like see the difference that like different colors or different layers or like different things could change things. I just love art, and like I've always been painting and drawing, but mostly line work and then the creative stuff. So no like university, just on my own stuff, I guess. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
We have something in common. I was also raised without a television. Yeah. And I found that I doodled in every margin and always had a creative outlet of drawing everywhere. And I read a lot. I think it was a good thing in a way, because I was always reading and doodling like crazy. So I wonder about that correlation with our creativity is expressed in different ways without having the dum-dum machine, you know, just pumping images into our brain. My mom always said, it'll turn your brain to mush.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, everyone's parents like, it's trash. But yeah, I think it's that filling of a narrative. So people just think you're drawing, but if you don't have TV, you're like thinking while you draw. You're projecting a movie, but in your brain, but like onto the page, right? Like it's not just a doodle. It's like this unraveling. So
right.
I do think not having TV, like TV, like I had a TV that I could watch like the few VHSs we owned, but like not like TV that you could keep going, you know?
The constant loop of the content feeding machine.
Yeah. So then you don't have time to unravel those stories through doodles, through like thanks, Mom. Worked out.
Do you find like me, you have a cultural hole when it comes to hanging out with your peers? They tell you, they're like, oh, remember that show from when we were kids? And you're like, nope. Do you have that too? I have that.
I have that with like TV, music, like so many things. Like my mom tried to put me in as earthy schools as possible and like very strange schools. And then I finally was like, I'm going to public like high school. What a shock. I was like, what are you listening to? I was like, I grew up on classical music. I was like, oh my God. It's like so out of the
so
loop.
loud. Yeah.
I was like, what are they saying? Like, I didn't know the abbreviations. I didn't know anything. I felt total. And it like, but they say new kids on like, and that was when I was a bit younger. Kids would talk about new kids on the block. I was like, who's the new kid on the block? Like, I didn't know it was like music.
Why won't anyone
like,
tell me who
confused.
it is? Yeah.
Who are they? Why can't we meet them?
I love that.
Very confusing. Lack of exposure for sure. But in the end, it worked out.
Did magic then come into your life earlier, perhaps? Or have you always maybe had a magical outlook because of that?
I definitely think like the few movies I was allowed to watch too. My mom was very curated. She didn't want me to watch anything like too much. So I watched like Secret Garden. So there's this very like unraveling of like the little princess, like little like stories like in everyday playing. So that like playing while you're just like living. And then I watched The Dark Crystal, which I was like terrified of, but I would rewatch it over like, because you only have a few movies, you rewatch them because I was like, what is happening? Like I was trying to unravel the idea of dark and light at like the age of 6 or like get that concept, you know? Right? They're like reading the moons and the stars and they're drawing in the sand and you're like, I loved magic early, and my mom promoted it. So like fairies, dragons, like everything all over.
So you weren't restricted from television for religious purposes?
No, I think she was just like afraid.
In this amazing environment without exposure to with limited exposure to the modern world through television or the hyped up world of modern television, you were allowed to have magical thinking grow in this place. I mean, that's amazing.
Had lots of boredom,
and boredom,
which is magical thinking, right?
It's the place where that can take root. So how were you introduced to the tarot?
I think they still have them, but in the grocery store that we go to every week, they'd have like a bookstore, like corner. It was actually quite big because back in the day, I think people had a lot more reading and stuff. And this bottom shelf at the bottom corner, there was like rare books, like art books or witch books. I remember buying like my first like witch book about like, I don't know, I didn't have a cauldron or anything, but had like torn edges and it was very textural. And I was like super into it. I didn't need love spells, but I liked the feel and the glitter and the paper. So then I started, I don't know, like playing with magic. And then one day they had Dragon Tarot by US Games there. The Dragon Tarot. Yeah. So my mom was like, well, that's not scary. It has like no naked people in it. But sure. Go home. And I was like, because it's like a book, but you can reshuffle the pages. And then you have the larger arcana are quite nice. So then you have these different characters sort of from movies that you can like move around to interact with each other in like different card scenarios. So I was beyond fascinated. My mom actually ended up chucking the deck out because I was like so obsessed. She was like, you can't have this anymore, because I could stare at cards forever. Because in that deck, it's quite small. Like the art's quite small and you can kind of see that they're in a garden. There's a maze and then there's hills. And then there's fall. Like, I love that. She was like, I don't know what's happening here. So she actually threw it away. Which was sad. And then I conned her into buying me the Alice in Wonderland one. So I had that one. And then once I got older, I rebought the dragon one. That was at the age where you weren't allowed to play anymore, but I still liked the idea of storytelling through my toys. And then it was a great, like, it's not a toy, but I can still have that storytelling experience.
I never thought about them being, I mean, I guess, of course, they're telling the story, they're different characters, but like, I never thought about it exactly that way, that it's like a story that you can kind of reshuffle. And it's funny because we just interviewed the illustrator of the Yarn Tarot, Katie Ponder, and she said almost the same thing. She's like, it's like a gallery of art that you can take with you and reflect on anytime. And
you know, my friend, Madame Pamita, who we are interviewing in a few weeks, her first deck of tarot cards when she was just a young girl that her mom bought for her, she used like paper dolls as a child and would play with them like paper dolls and give them a narrative. So it's very similar, although you were 14, she was younger, but it's the same idea of using the tarot as at first like a toy and like a storytelling device. I think that's amazing. You're not alone in that.
Yeah, I did have paper dolls, so maybe that's why I resonated with tarot earlier.
How did this project then become in your purview? You're like, oh, I like tarot. I'm going to make my own deck.
Yeah, I definitely went more into silk screening and design, but never forgot about like fairy tale stories. I still loved movies that were more like fantasy based. But then I was at a cafe and this girl came in with her tarot deck and started pulling cards. And I was like, whoa, it's like the addiction came back. And I was like, tarot, like what? You know, because I was like, I wasn't allowed to use them. It was like no go. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? And so she had the Rider-Waite-Smith. So she showed them to me and like was kind of like, she's now my friend. We are now friends. And she had taken like a 2-year tarot course and knew them all. And I was like, so cool. And I ran home, but I only had the Alice in Wonderland deck, which is pretty close to the Rider-Waite, but I felt like I wanted her deck. So I went and got the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and then started like pulling cards and trying to like learn because before obviously I was just liked the images and like what the little things on the cards were, like the story and symbolism, but I didn't know that there was actually like a thing to it. So it was fun to dive in. Like I love her and I love that art, but I just felt like I would get stuck on the human when I would look at them. I was like, when I spread them out, I just saw humans, which is what you see. What I wanted to see was like a fairy tale where I could see that they enter a scene, something happens, and then it kind of will take you to a finale card or like what you've pulled. And I wasn't getting that from the humans. I would get too distracted that it's a male or it's a female or she's got, you know, whatever. I wanted it to feel like a story still. Wanted the secret of Nim, but me to be in it.
Yes.
I wanted to be the main character, like be like, and I felt like that was easier for me to slip into as like stories and creatures and that kind of thing. It felt too like human problems. And I wanted more of like narrative story. Like, how do I overcome something rather than like, will this person and this person get together? And I had more journey questions, I suppose. But yeah,
I didn't that.
Connect.
I always wondered about this. Some people have talked to me about, I don't like cards with people in them. And I thought, why? But now I have a better understanding from you saying that you can be the central being in the story if you're looking at the card and now you have this animal guiding you, or you are then the protagonist and it's instead reflective of what's going on. That just is hitting me right now for the first time, and that totally makes sense. We've seen a lot of non-human decks, but you chose animals. Was there a reason why?
I was obsessed with fairy tales, folklore. Even like when you think of the classic folk tales with like the crow and the fox with the cheese, they tell you a story and then they tell you what the story actually meant, like underneath it. And I think that's so interesting. So I wanted to do a tarot deck that could read and resonate through stories. And most of the stories I had gotten were from North America. And those are the animals where I live. I live in Canada. So it's all, you know, those animals. And I was like, through all the things I had read and seen, I felt like I knew those animals the best. And I was like, I felt like I could characterize them in positions where the tarot were in the appropriate places. Hence, like with the suits and stuff.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. Each suit has some specific animals that kind of designate them. How did you decide which would be which?
I wasn't actually sure if people noticed right away. But yeah, each suit has animals for it. So like wands is like fast, fiery energy. So I definitely put like foxes and like coyotes and things that move like quick and like have that fiery kind of energy. And then for, say, cups, I put deer, which everyone's like a little confused, but they can pass through water without drowning. They can swim. The deer can like, moose can just walk. Moose are kind of like swamp donkeys out here. They like the water. And goats, like everything can pass through water. They have hooves, so they don't really get it in their paws and they just kind of they're taller, they can move through it without being horribly damaged. Whereas if a rabbit tried to cross the river, gonna be gone.
Great point.
And then for pentacles, we did rabbits, squirrels, skunks, that kind of stuff. So a lot more of like burrowing, collecting, like having many, like those types of animals tend to have larger litters of children. So I felt like they were perfect. And then swords is all, I was like going to do birds. And I was like crows and ravens and a few hawks and a few other little birds made it in. So then I just did all the animals, but then I really felt like the clothing was fun rather than just a deck with animals with hair. But I don't know, lots of people don't notice. Where is it? But my lovers card, they're not wearing clothes. So they're like the actual tarot. They're naked.
I didn't realize, but of course.
But you wouldn't know. But they're just like with little shells and they're all nude.
I think they match their suits very well. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll look through more of the cards and do a little more grilling on you, Linda. We'll be right back. Exciting news, listeners. Knit a Spell is coming to Patreon this summer. Our fan club will help you gain access to advance notice to our monthly topics and guests,
Episode outtakes,
voter power for future guests and episode topics,
private community to connect with other fans. That's my favorite.
Exclusive giveaways and promotions, and coming soon, we will be adding a special segment to Knit a Spell, which will be a Q&A segment with your questions. Patreon members will be exclusively answered for their questions, so we hope you'll join us.
Join us.
And you'll be doing this all while supporting one of your favorite podcasts, wrapped up in our gratitude. To learn more, sign up for our newsletter at knitaspell.com.
Have you ever wanted to be a professional palm reader or add palm reading to your existing practice? Coming this summer, I will be taking applications for my 6-month online group apprenticeship program, the Divine Hand Mastership Program. I will have a limited number of individuals that will have the opportunity to study the Divine Hand method of palmistry with me. You can sign up to learn more about this exclusive opportunity at thedivinehand.com/mastership. And we're back. So I want to know, I don't think this is watercolor. I don't think this is acrylic. What are you using?
For this deck, like I said, I was really into like line art and like 1 or 2 colors when you're silk screening, no more, because then it starts to look like those shirts you get in Hawaii that have like all the colors. So I was used to using like 2 colors and like strong line art. I had watercolored them like little, and then I started to panic, and I was like, what if I do one wrong? And then the color's there, because watercolor is actually one of the hardest, because you lay it once, it's there. It's not like acrylic where you can kind of keep going and completely change your situation. So I actually bought an iPad after I painted a few, because I was like 78. What if I get like one blue doesn't match the other blue? And so I got myself an iPad. So I was like, I'm going to commit to this. And I was like, I'll also have to learn something new. So I use Procreate, which I think like 50% of indie deck creators use. This is very hands-on. You draw onto the iPad. It's probably the closest you can get to like a real piece of paper. I just wanted to look like I did draw it and that I did color it in, but then I can edit them, which is why I've done so many edits. So then I would sketch them out, because I couldn't sketch on the iPad yet because it's too new. So I would sketch it, pen and ink it, and then I would just take a photo and then kind of redo it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
So then I would just kind of work over it and kind of change it up.
So what other crafting hobbies do you do that might be kind of magical other than your amazing drawings?
Yeah, so I still paint and draw. I do like carving as well. So all the tarot bags I carved out of lino.
What?
So I carved them by hand out of like rubber, and then I roller them, and then I print them all. So I've printed all the bags by hand. So I also do a lot of like carving for myself, and I print my own clothes and I just make fun stuff all the time. I think it's good as an artist to keep doing other things that are challenging. So when you come back to like what you do, like mostly, you have a different idea or a different twist on things, like because you've already solved problems in a different art field. Not that you're always good at it, I tried clay the other day and I was like, oh, this is so hard. It's sticking to my fingers. It was like all over the place, but it was good. It was like just good to like practice and try something. And then colors are challenging for me. So I always like to paint really fast so that I can't overthink the colors. And because it's on a canvas, it kind of is a commitment. Like I'm scared while I paint. I'm like, it's so colorful. And then just learning how those colors can balance as I'm painting.
It's interesting. Yeah. That's what we believe Pamela Coleman Smith, the artist of the Rider-Waite Smith deck, we believe that she was very fast with her art in that tarot deck. Her regular art was very meticulous. The tarot deck, the Rider-Waite Smith, you can see a lot of the details are very rushed in comparison to her regular paintings. What we see, I think a lot of times in the Rider-Waite Smith is that these are symbolic and channeled symbols that end up coming through and having symbolism that still reveals itself even today. So maybe that's one of the things that makes your work so powerful in some ways is that you have let these sort of come through you.
Like I was doing that earlier with like telling a story through my drawings. I would just let my little mouse hut people when I was little just tell me the story and I would just draw it. However good you could draw it at the time kind of made the story. And if you made a line, then he would be going, like it would kind of tell itself. I remember trying to learn the tarot with Rider-Waite and I was dreaming on top of it what it would be if it could be anything, like if it could be for me. Like I would look at it and no longer see Rider-Waite. I would start to see other characters. Like I was like, what if it was a fox and he had a red cape? And like I would like almost stop just seeing the cards. I would see other things.
I have to ask, I have seen multiple lovers cards. I have seen other sort of multiple major arcana cards. This is the first time I've come across multiple Hierophant cards. What I'm holding up for people who are just listening is 2 Hierophant cards. They look like a mountain goat. One is in full regalia, like a pope's hat, a red vestments. And the other is without the pope's hat and more like in pants.
Yeah, I think like religion is interesting too, because they tell lots of stories and blah, blah, blah. So I was really some of my friends went to church. I remember going with them and it was something else, how they have layers and like all that kind of stuff. But I also realized that it's quite triggering for people, religion. And now there's sort of this different idea, more of spirituality, more of like that gentle leadership or someone just conveying their ideas and you're allowed to accept them or not. And then that card also mirroring a teacher. So I was like, let's keep the regular Rider-Waite guy, but let's bring somebody like softer or gentler that tells the same story, but in a different kind of way so that you can accept or like learn in different ways.
He's one where I was like, I love this guy. So fun.
It's not lost on me that it's a mountain goat and it's sort of the guru on the mountain.
I don't know if you've seen videos of those goats, but it is like this, and they are just like, like just dancing up the side. And they're just up there like zen, no problem. Like anyone else would be like, we're all going to die. And nobody can eat them up there. And then they just dance down. Like it's wild.
Let's talk about some favorite cards.
They're obviously all my favorite. Right. Like the first card I did was a magician, which is the raccoon, because he has thumbs, right? Like raccoons can unzip things, they can open things. Like they have that thumb, which does make them magical. He can use all the things on that table because he has thumbs. And when he came like through and was finished, I really felt like he like was setting the narrative to the story. So after he was done, I felt like the rest of the deck was actually quite easy because he was like sassy enough, but not too cutesy. I just felt like he came out perfect. The one after him, the High Priestess, as the Lynx, she was like perfect.
Yes.
And then
beautiful.
I just felt like they both balanced each other and then was easy peasy from then on. The Judgment was really hard. And that's kind of why I went to moths, because I was like, how do we make dead bodies out of animals? And then I was like, let's change
a
that
better
up.
interpretation. Yeah, for sure.
So more like stepping into the fire, and you can take that however you want. It's a story that's been told like around the world, and different people interpret Moth to a Flame differently. So I felt like it was a good thinker card for such a heavy card.
Yes. Tell us about the devil.
That one wasn't hard, but I did have to think about it. I didn't want to do what Fables did, whereas like you demonize the wolf, because we all know now that all animals are very key to keeping like the circle of infinity going, because otherwise it gets jammed up. So I was like, I don't want to use a character where animals start to get problematic. And it's a zodiac card for Capricorn, I think. So I was like, this is like somebody's card that they have to like refer to. Let's keep it good. So I kind of have that idea that he's almost like a shapeshifter, almost like, you know, when you're in the woods alone at night, it almost feels like things are moving. Like that is what he is. He's like that shadow, that fear, like that could move through the woods and touch you. And you're like, oh my goodness. And then the magic that's like trickling out of his long, scary fingers are changing the animals. So if you look at the animals, they have different like long ears or horns. And so they're just losing or changing their shapes.
They're getting a beak.
So he's either casting a spell or they're morphing. So it's like kind of a reminder, like, what do you want to be? Where, like, are those features yours, or have you taken on something that you don't really need? Kind of reflect back, and they're not chained. So you can just step out of the spell whenever you kind of want to go back to yourself.
You have a strength card with a bunny with the infinity sign over their head, petting a ferocious looking wolf in place of a lion, which is marvelous. A marvelous depiction of a wolf. Instead of this classic, you were mentioning this classic depiction of the big bad wolf. Here we have wolf in the place of a lion on the strength card. I think that's really innovative.
And the rabbit, which would be eaten by it and likely be very scared of him, instead is like, no, we cool. Like, do you have a bad tooth? Let me look. All right, no problem.
It's definitely that feeling from, what is it, The Lion and the Mouse, where the lion is in so much until he steps onto a thorn, then he has no power anymore, and he needs the help of something, you know, powerful to get it out, because you can't get it out.
Last one I want to grill you about, because I could go through all of them, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's right. It's the Hermit. Yeah. This is one of my favorites. I love that he's a mole. Talk me through why you did the mole.
He was like one of the third or fourth ones I made too, and because I love the Hermit card like so much, and I was like, he needs to be perfect and roby, and like, you know, it's cool out. It's not a journey that you like the Fool, where it's like this beautiful lit. It's this more mysterious day after something, and you know that something's happened, that you've cloaked yourself, you're covered, you're warm, possibly provisions. You have your magical like lamp that has a star instead of fire. It's like you're on this like magical journey. And then with the weather changing, I really feel like that's like a transitional moment through like, you know, water, like air, like everything's changed. Like I wanted to give everything kind of a moment to change. He turned out perfect. He just showed up. So that was easy.
How do you utilize tarot in general? How do you especially utilize your own deck?
I do larger spreads, but I tend to like to do just like daily pulls, like throughout the day. Like if I'm having challenges or if something comes up, I'll just like shuffle through the cards. Or if I'm like having a coffee, I'm like, where's my energy at? Where could it be at? So I'll pull like just 1 to 2 cards throughout the day, and then I'll do larger spreads. Sometimes I like to like free lay them. So if I'm doing like a larger spread, I'll just keep going. Like I'll start moving the story along, I guess, in more playful ways.
Your book also was very nice because it has your interpretations of the card and not just 3 words that generally reflect what might be the card. A little book worth keeping.
What I am so taken by is the 16 additional cards in that deck. So it's not just the 78 tarot cards, it's the 16 additional cards in here that I suppose you could shuffle in to the tarot or use as oracle deck on its own, including like moon phases. There's a shooting star. There's like a yeti, a fey creature, a ghost. I mean, there's such universal meaning in all these symbols. Again, in your amazing style, it's almost like you get 2 decks in one. What inspired you to add those cards?
I think I was done the tarot deck, but then I wanted more stories. Sometimes I'll be picking colors and I want more colors. I feel like sometimes there's not enough colors. I'm like, aren't there more colors So I wanted a few just like straight up spooky cards. So I wanted the like dead old tree to kind of reflect that like stiffness in nature. I don't know if you remember Fern Gully. Wasn't there that like spooky thing in the it was so scary. So that like stiffness, that like reaching branches, that's yeah, even Wizard of Oz, the trees are kind of mean at some point and throw apples at them and scratch them. And it's like bringing characters that you already know into, if you want more characters like the Sasquatch, like something moving, like, you know, changing or like scaring you or like just passing by just to remind you that like, you know, things are around. And the Goblin is like sort of a good card about like exchanging with the unknown, right? It's like the Goblin over the bridge. Like, how do you pass the bridge? Like, he has gold in his hands and he also has fire. Like, what are you going to offer him? What will he ask you? Is he going to trick you? It's like, can you get around him? No, there's something in the water. It's like, how do you like bypass these things? And then you can pull another tarot card for the other side. And I just wanted more story and a little bit of extra characters. Definitely just started with the season cards just to like add clear seasons as well. Cause I didn't want to take a card and make it spring. So then I was able to do this without editing too much into the classic Rider-Waite rhythm, make it part of your reading. It's like, when would this work for me? And you can shuffle just from the 4 cards.
What a fun thing to do for like, oh, when should I start this next like knitting project or whatever? Like, oh, okay, on the full moon, or oh, not till the half, you know, maybe that would be good. Yeah. So many fun ways to use that. And so will these additional cards be in your upcoming 3rd edition release of this deck?
Yes. And I have, it's in the 2nd, but I sort of have 2 new ones. So I have Fairyland and I have the Blood Moon or the Eclipse. Like, so we have 2 new cards, which is exciting.
Now I need the 3rd edition.
That's right. Yeah. Tell us when it's planned to launch and how people can get it and all of that good stuff.
It'll come hopefully towards the end of August. So end of August, beginning of September, it should be ready. And then you can just get it on my website. So I'll just drop it on my website because I was doing Kickstarters, but they are so much work. It's insane. That's what's exciting actually about my deck. It's made in Canada and it's made with sustainable paper, which I thought all paper was sustainable. That is not true. I didn't know you could cut down forests and not put them back. That's a thing. I was like, what? So it's paper that was cut down and part recycled, but then they actually put the trees back. So that's nice too. And it's all made locally.
Awesome. Well, we have paired with Linda to offer a giveaway with her new edition of the deck. Oh, before it's even out, you guys. So we are going to host this giveaway for our newsletter subscribers. So if you are currently a subscriber, guess what? You're already in. If you are not yet a subscriber, you can go ahead and do so now between now and August 5th for your chance to win. You can do so on knittaspell.com or go through the link in our bio or show notes or wherever you're listening, watching to click easily.
That is the easiest way to enter a giveaway in the world. All you need to do is subscribe at knittaspell.com. And you'll automatically be entered. We are just going to pick somebody from our newsletter.
And you too can enjoy this magical deck for yourself.
I can't wait to find out who wins.
Yeah, and we'll do an announcement on our show after we do the drawing, and then, of course, on our social media on Instagram.
Linda, thank you so much for your generosity in providing that deck as a giveaway. I mean, it's so awesome.
Yeah, yes. I'm just excited. New cards, new deck, new person.
That's right. New episodes. So exciting.
It's fun that you're sharing so much like magic. Like I was listening to a few and I was like, oh, I never really thought about like how you're casting spells all the time. And then I was like, not to sidetrack, but it was like, I think then I ate shortly after that. And I was like thinking, and I was like, maybe this is like obviously, but like people pray or they stop doing whatever while they eat. And it's very much like, well, if you're worrying while you're eating, maybe you're eating that spell. And I was like, oh my God. So I put on some nice music, sat down and like got lit. Like, and it's just funny because it reminds you that magic's everywhere. And it's like, and I love that you guys do all sorts of topics because it's hard to remember everything. And so it's fun to share and reflect.
That means so much. It's really helpful to hear that. It's helpful to hear that from you. It's helpful to hear that when our listeners write in or review us and say those things. It really makes a difference.
And I didn't realize that it was visual as well. So now I'm actually excited to go on and see the people that I was listening to.
Yeah, that's right. You can watch every episode twice. Watch it once on YouTube, listen to it once. It's a whole different experience with the theater of the mind versus just watching us. So
you want a copy of this deck and you want to follow Linda and hang out with her. So visit wildheartstudio.com, wildheartstudio.com, and hang out with Linda. Do you have a newsletter that people can subscribe to, Linda?
I have a newsletter, but I've not really sent one, but it will happen when I get the decks in.
What else is coming up for you?
I'm doing the 3rd edition, which is super exciting with extra cards. And then I am going to do another deck. I've been working on it for a while, but I keep editing this deck. But now that it's finished and I got the proofs and I approved them and everything's now going to start rolling. It's all drawn. It just needs to be colored.
Any hint to whet our appetite?
Well, obviously it's animals, but it's something that I feel hasn't really been done yet. And I don't know if anyone will like it. But I'm super excited. It's a little different, but it has animals and it's fun. And I think it's a little bit more delicate maybe than the tarot. It's more like an oracle for sure. And just more playful and light. But it's a bizarre concept. So I just have to like craft it and make it look good so that people get what my idea was, I suppose.
Well, we'll have you on to explain all about it when it drops. How about that?
When I figure out the colors and I feel like confident about like how the story is laid, I will definitely, we can definitely chat about it.
And as far as Instagram goes, it looks like it's at Northern Animal Tarot. And you also have one for Wild Heart Studio, right?
Yeah. Okay. That's for when I so I have some of my like prints from like I carved like Baba Yaga's hut and I dyed some like tote bags and printed on them. So it's like all my fun stuff and like weirder things.
We'll put links to everything all about Linda on our show notes at knitaspell.com. So don't miss that. Thank you for bringing your amazing art and your gifts and your perspective into the world. You're absolutely amazing.
Thank you for having me.
And don't forget to sign up for the giveaway at knitaspell.com. Just sign up for our newsletter and you'll be entered to win. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Jim. And thank you to our listeners. We will see you all again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knitaspell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knitaspell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll even receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.